leverage on our global presence to get some of these specialists from, say, our Singapore office to help us with these thoughts. What should we do? What is the global view of different exchange rates? Plus, we very actively now monitor our funding, our receivables, more so than we may have done in the past. And we've also sort of brought in a lot more focus on cash management into people's own scorecard. So even the salesmen have a cash-related target in their scorecard, which if they don't meet, they actually lose part of their bonus. So throughout the organization, we made these changes, especially so last year, to link people into the cost of doing business and also the funding that we have to do for any marketing initiatives that people want to put in, we take cash out.
Now, coming to Byco, Roshan, obviously the oil price has moved drastically. It's going up, it's coming down. On top of that, there is a circular debt issue. Plus, we're not really clear what the interest rate environment is next 6 months to a year. How are you managing your treasury and your FX related issues?
From our perspective, it's actually become a daily management of cash, and it's not only just cash, but management of all working capital items, whether it is inventories, which we monitor much more carefully. Previously, maybe a CFO would just look at his working capital maybe once a month, not really look at focus at cash flow. But for us now, it's important that we focus on cash flow and on all working capital items literally on a daily basis. We have got to learn new skills as CFOs in understanding the treasury markets, in understanding new options that are available. Some of them may be so technical, maybe even the terminologies. I'll just share a funny incident that I was talking to one of my bankers on, hedging and options, and he said, a collar would be good for you. And I said, see, I know I'm a borrower, but don't make me a dog. Don't give me a collar right now. And they said, no, a collar is a term which they use in hedging operations. And so as a CFO, we not only now look at accounts and our balance sheets or income statements, that's considered to be as a given. Control, environment and governance, it is expected of us to be good proponents of governance. The important thing is now we've got to learn new skills on fund management, on currency swaps, on hedging, on derivatives, everything that we were told, well, that's not really a CFO's function. Now we've got to understand those and try to identify opportunities, especially in this tough environment. We all know that from 2008 onwards, we have had a severe liquidity crunch. It's not just in our country, it's all over the world. Liquid resources are very scarce, and we've got to fight for those literally. So we've got to sell our companies, we've got to make our companies attractive enough for a lender or a borrower, for a lender to invest. And we can achieve that in several ways. Firstly, of course, by knowing the market very well. We've got to understand our market.
So now, just the way you have to manage the treasury, especially most of the people here are, if you look at it from an underlying perspective, are in the commodity business. Now, Aslam Sadruddin Saab is the CFO of Pakistan Cables, but you could also say that you're in the copper business. Now, major drastic events have taken place. The Chilean earthquake, it's a huge copper producer. How does your job change? How does your role change with regards to that, added to the financial crisis with regards to this year?
Yes, the copper, like all other commodities, fluctuates drastically nowadays. There was a time when prices were going up and down by $10 or $20. But now you can see a fluctuation of $100, $200 in a day. And some events takes place. Although the fact is that the mines are up in the north of Chile, but nobody knows that. And when they hear an earthquake in Chile, the prices shoot up. So what we do, and what I would recommend to others also, that in Pakistan Cables, we have a back-to-back booking. Whenever we get a major order, we try and book the raw material. Don't try to speculate, because your best estimates can go out. Sometimes it's very nice when you make money, but believe me, you can lose money also. So That is not your, speculation is not your business. Our business is to manufacture cables. So we always make a back-to-back purchase. Whenever we receive our major orders, there's a bouquet. So we don't want to have speculation in our business and just concentrate on our core business. So my advice would be to everyone that don't speculate on these commodity prices, because you might be an expert and you might think that you're doing a lot, but some events happen which really throw off all your estimates.
Taking cue from that, Aamir Saab, what's your experience, especially on the commodity side and in the changing interest rate environment, and how do you manage to tackle that this year?
Thank you, Junaid. We are again in the commodities business, and the commodity here, of course, is part of the petrochemical chain. And the petrochemical chain, as we all know, is directly or indirectly influenced by what happens in the oil market. Again, 2008 was a very volatile year, and what that effectively meant is that there was volatility on a monthly and a quarterly basis. So it was very difficult to actually control our bottom line. Effectively, this particular business, the margin is determined not by us, but in the international market, and that's part of the globalization scene. The globalization has impacted us in a direct manner, in that there is one aspect that's come in a big way, is the China factor. Like my friend Aslam talked about the Chile factor for their copper production, in our case it's the China factor. And the China factor, China becoming such a huge consumer of practically everything that exists on this earth, that they can literally control things on a daily, quarterly or on an annual basis. In 2008, of course, we had the oil on the supply side. Then on the purchase side, on the demand side, we had the China factor that I spoke about. And they literally controlled the market in terms of how much money they actually put in or how much money they actually withdrew. So one fine day we used to see demand going up, the other day demand shooting down. So that became a major hassle for us. It's been relatively steady in 2009 because obviously the oil price hasn't fluctuated that much, and China of course has come out with a big stimulus package, as we all know, just like the Western economies have. But again, because China came in with a big stimulus package, that actually kept the commodity prices at a reasonably good level, which meant that we were able to earn some good money in 2009. The issue, of course, with all this volatility, and as Junaid mentioned, on the interest rate side, is how do you then manage the funds? One day you are in the money, and next day you are in sort of chasing your bankers, for God's sake, give us money. That was the challenge that I, as CFO, faced. And it just basically meant getting down to basics, and as again Aslam said, not speculating, focusing on the business, leaving the sort of volatility aside, fine, that's going to affect your bottom line. But focusing on running the plant full out, focusing on managing to sell everything, changing our business model, getting into just-in-time sales, bringing down inventory, because obviously if you have high inventory, you're going to bound take inventory losses. So all of those factors combined, just focusing on the basic principles of running a petrochemical business, and then at the end of the day, if you make money, good. If you don't, then there are things that are not within your control.
Keeping yourself out of any speculative elements. Now, Misbah, what's your experience been? And for example, in this year, we originally assumed somewhere in the middle of last year that we'd be in a definitive declining interest rate environment and money would be a lot cheaper, but it's not. We've got another monetary policy coming up in a few weeks, and we don't expect a lot of cuts. And the system remains generally strapped of liquidity. How well are you managing your cash flows, especially because your product is in the end related directly to the consumer market?
There are 2 or 3 things that I would like to talk about. One is the challenges that we face when there is a liquidity crunch. The other thing is the challenges our customers face. Since we are in the packaging industry, whatever the industry is doing is having a direct impact. Of course, if there is enough to package, we will do well as well. When it comes to liquidity, our customers especially have suffered a lot, and especially with regards to the interest rate fluctuations. You see, their cost of input